Welcome back to Nick Lenz's novel reviews, episode number 37. Okay, and this one we're reviewing Star Trek: The Next Generation, Headlong Flight by Dayton Ward. In case some of you are wondering, yes, this does happen. And here's the thing about this. Now, this is the regular Enterprise that we're reading right now. It's been that way since First Contact came out. Yeah, this has been the regular Enterprise reading. This is an alternate version of the Enterprise D, where it has a similar concept from the episode Parallels, where in one of the alternate realities Worf went to, where Captain Picard died during the best of both worlds. This is a similar concept to that, except in this reality, they kept the fact that that happened, and there's a few slight differences. One thing, instead of Worf becoming Riker's first officer, it was Data. And also, Deanna Troi and Riker are a couple. They're not married, but they're together. Dr. Crusher is not on the ship. She's replaced by Dr. Pulaski, who even though she's part of the crew, she does almost jack squat in this book. It's more of Dr. Crusher herself, the regular universe Dr. Crusher. And of course, there's also an alternate version of Wesley Crusher, who apparently left Starfleet and has become a tactical advisor for the Enterprise, which is not a bad idea for him to do. At least he's still with the Enterprise. Yeah. And apparently it's revealed that most of the crew who had served under... So some people who actually did serve under Picard pretty much left. Now, also, Tasha Yar is alive. And apparently, it's later revealed that she looks a few years younger than how she was when she died back in the episode Skin of Evil. Now, this is the second time that I have seen it where there's an alternate version of Tasha Yar where she's alive and well at this point in time. The only other time I've seen this was in the episode Yesterday's Enterprise, where there was an alternate version of Tasha Yar and she never died, and the only reason why that was because the Federation was at war with the Klingons. This is kind of a similar idea, but at this point, I think it's not stated if she's still Chief of Security in this one. It's more implied Worf is the Chief of Security than Tasha Yar. It's more like the opposite than it was in the regular reality. That's what it seems like to me. And, let's see, what else? Oh yeah, and this ship of the Romulans, that's actually from the 23rd century. Yes, this is a 23rd century Romulan bird of prey. Yeah, so this particular Romulan ship is definitely seen in the book. Now, it's from the same timeline that the regular Enterprise is from, the one that normally focused on. Now, it is good the fact you have these. Now, in the case of the Enterprise D, you have D and E for pretty much the first, about 200 pages or so. It takes a while for this Romulan ship to show up, which is called the Talon. I think it's called the Talon, I believe it's called. I don't really remember what it's called. There are some interesting interactions, like some of the more newer crew members who showed up, like Lieutenant Chen meeting Data, who actually is still with the ship. And she tells him that when he was serving on board the Enterprise D of the regular reality, she was in grade school. Okay, that is interesting. And it's interesting, though, that Data is the one who actually goes over to the Enterprise D. I'm like, oh yeah, and Riker and Picard and Crusher went over to the Enterprise D. And when Picard first sees Riker, this is, of course, an alternate universe Riker, he says, "Congratulations on your promotion." Even though that, from his perspective, it's 2267, which is barely a year after the death, I would say a year after the events of Best of Both Worlds. Yeah, I would say a year. So Riker's been captain for a full year, and there's a reference to Shell being here, where she kind of was his first officer, then she got transferred someplace else. And then, of course, Data became first officer, which makes sense. Something that actually was going to happen in the regular reality, but because of Data's death in the Star Trek Nemesis, that did not happen. Because I think the original plan was because Riker got promoted to captain and took command of Titan. Data was supposed to become Picard's new first officer, but that never happened. And also, in that particular reality, he is a full commander. Yeah, he is a full commander, and I at least like the fact that Data got to interact with the new generation of crew, the replacement crew members, for the Enterprise E. I love that. That was a really neat. Um, I also kind of liked it that they had some sort of on like panel wise, like screen wise of the younger and older versions of Joy to LaForge, despite the fact they never physically interacted with each other, which is a bit odd. Also, there's a reference. There's one real good reference to the episode Endgame when they referenced the whole thing with the futuristic version of Admiral Janeway coming from when she comes from the future to bring the Voyager home early. And what else? Oh yeah, about the transmag torpedo and Picard giving Captain Riker schematics to that because he has a good feeling that the Borg might be coming back, which they kind of do. I'm not sure if that. I'm not sure if the writers of the Star Trek novels will actually follow up on that concept, but this was a really neat idea to have an alternate version of the Enterprise and having two different perspectives, not just from Enterprise E, but also from the Enterprise D. This was a brilliant concept. Despite the fact we never got a chance to see these two ships on screen, but it's great the fact you have a novel where they share screen time. In a way, appearance-wise, this was a brilliant idea. Dayton Ward, you did a great job with this book. This book is fantastic. It's all about shifting dimensions, stuff like that, but I gotta hand it to it. It's just purely great. And Riker himself, Captain Riker, does know of the Sovereign class, which good on for him. He says at that point in time, from his point of view, which, by the way, since this takes place in 2386, that means that he's from exactly 19 years in the past. Yeah, 19 years. So, in a way, he traveled 19 years in the future, but it's a different timeline, so it doesn't really matter. In the case of the Romulans, they time traveled exactly 100 years in the future, which they go back to the Romulan Star Empire. But yeah, great book. I give this book a 10 out of 10. I just freaking love this book. If you're a fan of The Next Generation, you would love this book because this is definitely a story that would definitely made it to an episode of Next Generation. I mean, yeah, it's a typical standard, something you would see on Next Generation, but it's told really, really well. Even though Parallels is from the final season of the show, I think either from 6 or 7, I'm not really sure exactly which season it was, but he uses that concept, and basically it's like Dayton Ward, who was a huge Next Generation fan, because I feel he actually, in the acknowledgments, he says he actually watched, he remembers watching Encounter at Farpoint back in the 80s, apparently in Marine barracks and on a rec room TV. But yes, this is just pure awesomeness. Yes, I highly recommend this to anybody who is definitely a Next Generation fan and definitely a Star Trek fan. 10 out of 10, awesome. Try it. You would love this book. Even though, yes, you probably be a bit behind when it comes to the Next Generation novels, but I definitely recommend trying it out. It's not exactly reader-friendly, per se, even though technically it's a term you would use for comic books. I would apply that also to novels because they reference stuff from the actual regular novels, like new characters, like Lieutenant Shen. There's a few other new ones, like there's one that seems like the security chief is a woman, which it's actually the second one they've actually had because the first one they had, who was their, I think it actually is their third one because the Enterprise E went through 3 female chief of security. The first one, Christine Vale, is now currently the captain of the USS Titan. She got transferred over there, became the first officer, and then became captain. The second one basically was in relationship with Worf, and she got killed by the Breen during the book Cold Equations, during the first book of that series, and now they're on their third chief of security. So yes, so 3 chiefs of security, and Worf is the second first officer. He's the second person to hold the position of first officer of the Enterprise E. Second person, because for a long time it was Riker, And then after events of Nemesis, he took over as the first officer. Basically, he was acting first officer for a while, and then he became full first officer. I think it was after Star Trek It was after that three-parter Star Trek Destiny, the one that got rid of the Borg. I guess that's when he decided to accept it fully after being acting first officer for 2 years. That's my personal guess. So even though yes, he's been first officer at this point for 5 years, he's doing a great job at it. Heck, he was even briefly recommended a promotion to captain, which he turned down because of something that happened during Deep Space Nine. Because well, he preferred to go rescue his wife over to get an actual contact who died. But I do kind of think maybe I think we might get a chance to see Worf get command. I mean, currently in the Next Generation book right now, there's only 4 characters from the show who actually are regularly part of the books. And that's Picard, Crusher, Geordi, and Worf. That's it. Everybody else is off someplace else. Riker and Troy are off on the Titan. Of course, Tashier's dead, and Wesley Crusher just off wherever he wants to, and Data's off wherever he wants to too. He hasn't been seen since that one-shot book. But one thing I can praise this book for, it's not book 1 of a trilogy, because I think it's a good idea they decided to do this. Because, and by the way, the trilogy that came just before this book takes place 2 months later. Yep, 2 months later. After, what was the name of that book trilogy again? It was Star Trek, it was Prey. Yes, that was the trilogy. This takes place 2 months later. I mean, it's not a bad idea. You don't have to have something big as something like that. This is still big, but not as big as that. So, good job, Dayton Ward. Alright, that's it for this episode. Stay tuned for episode 38. I don't know what I'm going to do for it yet, but it might be something. It could be Star Trek, Star Wars, Doctor Who knows? Okay? Until then, I will see you there.